We're on Kuf Ayin Dalet Amid Beis. I'm going to start back a little. So we just said the story of Abaya. He gave an eitzah to Rav Huna about how to get the ksuba out of his, how Rav Huna could get the ksuba out of his father by divorcing his wife. And Abaya got into trouble. They were telling him, how could you do such a thing? That was his idea. You tell the wife, divorce your wife, Rav Huna, divorce your wife, and then since your father made himself an arev, he was a guarantor on the ksuba, he'll pay your wife the money, and then you'll remarry her, and you'll be married and with the wife, with money. Right? That was the idea. So, correct the Gemara. It's about 12 lines up in the narrow lines. But Aravu b'kaimal an Arav diksuba loy mishabed. We said that an Arav for a ksuba is not meshubed. An Arav, when a person becomes an Arav on a ksuba, as we're going to see later on the Gemara, his intention is just he wants to bolster the new family. He wants the wife to feel secure, but he doesn't, like sort of like an asmachta. He doesn't really intend to pay out money. Like we know, kablan hava. In this case, he wasn't an Arav. He made himself a kablan. Like we said, a kablan is a higher level of responsibility. We said in the Gemara, if someone says, instead of saying a lashon of lend someone and I'll back it up, he says give to him and I'll back it up, and I'll be makabel on myself. So when he says that lashon, that's more of a lashon kabbalah. That's more of a lashon where he's taking it upon himself. So that even according to the Mandam who says that an arev is not meshubah by ksuba, kablan is meshubah. So we're going to see soon. There's a machlekes. First of all, we never mentioned this thing before that there's no such thing as a arv on a ksuba, and we're going to see later on. There's a machlekes even on a kablan for a ksuba. It depends if whether there's another factor, whether it's a arev or a kablan. A second factor that's going to determine of whether we listen to him, or whether we make the arev, the guarantor, on the hook. It will depend on whether the person who he's guaranteeing has any money at the time that he was makabel. So, in this case, right, we're trying to. So, what are we trying to explain? We're trying to explain how come when they gave Rav Huna this suggestion that he should collect the money from his father by divorcing his wife, why don't we say that his father's not on the hook anyway because he's a arev on a ksuba? So you said maybe he's a kablan. We're saying even a kablan is not meshubed in a case where the person who he guaranteed at the time that he guaranteed it did not have any money because he knows he's heading for trouble. So he must have just meant it to provide moral support in the marriage. He wasn't really. He said arev in general is never meshab himself because it's just trying to help out. So a kablan, when he makes that higher level, he is meshabed, but that's only where the person who he's backing up, the husband, who owes the ksuba, has some property that he could pay it back at the time that they got married. But if he has nothing, and the guy, even if he says I'm being makabel on myself, he doesn't want to really be in the position of having to pay. So it must be that he was doing it just to bolster him, to make him feel better. Okay? Now again, how are we going to understand this? Obviously, we seem to understand that Rav Huna had no money. You said he was a Tzurban Rabban, he had no money from the beginning. No, maybe Rav Huna did have some property at the time this story started, and this property, got swept away. Or you could say, like we said before, this was Rav Huna's father who was making himself the arev on the ksuba. So even though normally a person, even if he's makablan, is not meshabed himself unless the person had mechasen, but a father, he's meshabed himself. This is my wedding gift to you, then I'm going to pay the ksuba if necessary. The itmar. Now we're just going to say this machloikis that the Gemara assumed you knew, but now it's going to say what it is. The itmar. Arev the ksuba, an arev, a guarantor on a ksuba, divrei hakol loy meshabed. Everyone agrees he's not meshabed himself because the arev he clearly means just to help them out, to make the woman feel better, but he doesn't really mean to be on the hook. Kabbalah the balchoy de call mishtabed, but a kabbalah not by iksuba, but on a regular chayv, everyone holds you a mishubed because you be makabel saying tnu, so he really means kabbalah the ksuba arav the balchoy pligi. But there is a machlekes either where he's makabel as a kabbalah by iksuba, or he did the lower level of guarantor, where he's an arav and a balchoy. There's a machlekes. Marsavi islay nichsi leloy v'mishabed, he leslay mishabed. Marsavi bein islay bein leslay mishabed. One man the Amr says it depends on whether, even if it's like an arav and a balchoy, which is what the mission is talking about. This standard case of an arav, someone guarantees a chayv. If one man the Amr holds that if the person who's guaranteeing has no money, it's like an asmachta. He doesn't really mean to guarantee it. He's just trying to make him feel better. He doesn't want to say no, but he doesn't really want to be mishabed himself.
It means that the wife, we should not know that there's this gimmick.
What do you mean? You mean what, making her feel better with something that doesn't mean anything? Well,
why is it worthless?
The reason why, as we're going to see later on, the wife, we're going to see the Gemara's mom is going to say this. There's two things. First of all, Tov L'Mesav Tandu L'Mesav Amaloi. Woman is always better off being married. And second of all, Ksuba is something potential. She's not losing anything. She's not getting the gain at the end that she's losing. That maybe if Chas v'Shalom she gets divorced or her husband dies, that she might not be able to have, and he doesn't have any money, then she won't have where to collect from. It's not a current loss.
The dreaded prenup talk will never happen. It's just different.
That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says literally, "V'lav midi chasru." She's not suffering the loss. It's a potential gain.
Massage her.
Okay, listen. We want to get people married. Don't you ever read anything? There's a crisis.
So the women have to know that this is a gimmick.
Better they don't know. There's a lot of things. I don't know. Are you married? There's a lot of things better people don't know.
Yeah, but if there's a gimmick out there, women have to. I mean, the word of mouth over there is incredible.
We're going to Miami to stay over for a Shabbos in February at a hotel. My wife keeps asking me, how much do they charge you for the meals? I say, it's not so bad. It's not so bad. Better she doesn't know. She won't enjoy the food if she knows how much it costs. Something's better than
maybe she cook and take with her.
She wants, believe me, she suggested it. The halacha is arev bein islay or bein leslay mishtabed. Arev, whether he has property or doesn't have property, he's meshubed. Bar me arev diksuba, except for the only one that's going to be excluded. The only time we're going to say that because he doesn't have property, the lender, or in this case the husband. If it's just an arev and not a kabbalah by a ksuba, in that case he doesn't really mean to do it. Like we said, if he really would have meant it, he would have said I'm a kabbalah. He just said arev, so therefore it's not going to be a shiba. Afagav the isla baal loy mishabed. Even though the baal arev of a ksuba, even though the baal he's not mishabed himself. My timer mitzvah hu the ovid. He's doing it as a mitzvah, like the Rashbam says. Let's see the Rashbam, 2 lines up in the narrow lines. Hamashadach b'zivugin ein daiter lefroya ha'arvas. Amaskam lezav, he wants to make the shidduch go through. Shalidei arvazu misratzen, she's going to be happy. He wants her just to be happy when she's getting married. Loy midi chasra, and then the Gemara continues v'lav midi chasra leisha tov l'meisav tandu u'lotoyvasan iskaven. He's doing it for her own good. You don't like this condescending, patronizing attitude. Give her the facts.
It's like 2 things. Like it's like 2 things.
Right, 2 separate things. Tavla Mesav Tandu, and on top of it,
Rashbam thought the need to give both reasons. Elamai.
No, right, because you can't have a go like you're saying. You can't, even if it's better for her to get married than not married. You can't rip her off. Right? You can't take away from her.
Adds in Rashbam.
It's not a loss. It's potential down the line, maybe. Yeah. No, listen.
Just relying on her ignorance.
Listen, like Menachem said, if they're already thinking about the prenup before the chasana, you're for sure going to end up with the ksuba. You're going to end up with the divorce. It's better she should be nisratza from the beginning. She's happy. She goes in all doe-eyed, and then everything will work out better.
This is just interesting. After learning Nasham, we got all with Mesechtas on Ksubas. It's funny. Making like a little bit
You
of
can make
That's
say
it.
that
It's funny. I'm reading this Rashbam.
people take right the right to.
We had many dafim
We have a
on.
whole besechta.
Yeah, we learned it. Like it's complicated. We learned the whole
But now
Mesechta.
we have to. We're talking about an arvis. We're talking about a guarantee of the ksuba. We're not talking about the actual ksuba
No,
itself.
but
That means as long as the husband has the money, you don't have to come on.
The way the Rashbam to push the ksuba through because of these two reasons, even though the Ariv is Lamaisa not paying it.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
New topic. Amar Rav Huna. Shchiv meirah shehikdish kol nechasav. A shchiv meirah. He was makdish everything he owns as a shchiv meirah. He says, I'm makdish all my possessions. I'm about to die. I don't need anything. But Amar, and in addition, he said, but then after he was makdish, he says, mana ployne biyadi. However, oh, by the way, before you come cart off all my possessions, I owe $100 to Reuven. Neman. He's Neman that they have to take from his possessions. He has to pay the $100. Chazak and Adam Isaac Knuni al Hegdish. A person wouldn't want to rip off Hegdish. He's not going to first give you Makdish as Nechasav and then give it away. Or he's not getting it for himself. He's taking the money from Hegdish to give to someone else. So he wouldn't do that. We're on the bottom of Kuf Ayin Dalet on the base. And we're talking about someone who's Makdish Shchimera, who's Makdish everything he owns, and then he says, oh, I remember I owe $100. We take the $100 because we don't assume he's taking it away from Hektish. Would a person take away, just like we just said, a person wouldn't be Isaac Knunyal Hektish, he also wouldn't make a Knunyal Banav. He wouldn't want to take away illegally from his sons. And the Rav Shmuel Dami Chavayu, Shchimera Sha'ama Mana Pliny Biyati. If a Shchimera, not someone who was Makdish, but he's just a Shchimera, and he says, oh, by the way, I'm about to die, you should know I owe $100 to this guy. Amar Tnu, if he said, I owe the money and give the money to this person, give Reuven the $100, noisten. Then you give it to him. Le'ama Tnu ein noisten. But if he didn't say Tnu, you don't give it. Alma. So why is the reason, why is it that we say Loy Amar Tnu ein noisten? If he didn't say Tnu ein noisten, why don't we believe him? He said he's giving it. So we say, Alma Adam also shaloy lahashbiya as banav. A person might say this. He doesn't really mean that he owes the money. He's doing it because he doesn't want people to think his name happens to be Rockefeller. He doesn't want people to think his kids are very wealthy and everyone will take advantage of them. So he says, oh, I have all these debts. I owe $1 million to Reuven. But he doesn't really believe it. So unless he says Tnu, we don't take him seriously. We say, this is very similar to the last thing, right? Someone's ma'arif that he doesn't really mean. This also, he doesn't really mean it when he says, I owe the money, and that's why if he's loy amar tnu ein nois. So Gemara says, right, and he's certainly not trying to rip off his kids. Hachanami, adam asu shelo yal hashbi as banav. Maybe over here also, I'm sorry, shelo yal hashbi as atzmei. Why don't we say the same thing? When a person was makdish all his nechasim, maybe he doesn't really mean that he owes the money, the $100, but he just doesn't want people to think he has money.
Fine, is it true or not?
Right. The Mefarshim asked that question. They say he doesn't want people, even until he thinks maybe I'll recover, and if I recover, I don't want people to think I have a ton of money. Now, he gave away everything to Hagdish. I don't know. That's another question. What is he really worried about? But that's the Gemara's. But that's what the Rashbam says. And this is his kavana. He's just trying to, talk down what he has, which is a common thing, right? Every rich guy says, in the meantime, he's going on PJs and he's making a $500,000 chas, and he'll be saying, the taxes are killing me. I got no money. That's the way it is. So the Gemara, ki kama Rav Huna. Where did Rav Huna say that he is believed to take the money away even after he's makdish kol nechasav? Hasam did not get shtara. That's only with a person who he's saying, Reuven, I owe $1 million to Reuven. has a star that says that he owes the money. So the Gemara, Mechlal the Rabbi Shmuel, the law Yinakat star. By Rabbi Shmuel talking about a case where it's a milva al peh, Amar Tnu Noisnim. Then if that's the case, why if he said even Tnu? He said I owe $100 million, and he says give it to them. Why do you give it? Milva al peh. Rav Shmuel Dami Shabbai Milva al peh Negoiva Loimen Ayashiv Loimen Alakuchas. You don't. It would be just a halva. He's saying I owe money, but it wasn't lent with the star. And the din is, we're talking about now the Yarshim of the Shemira. And we're saying, do we take from the Yarshim? How could you take from the Yarshim? You don't take a halva al peh, a chayiv that's not in a star. You can't take it from the Yarshim. The Gemara is going to soon say this din. We're going to see the actual source of this din, which is all over Shas. It's one of the Yisayidistic things throughout the whole. It's funny, like it's throughout the whole Bava, all the Bavas, Bava Kama, Bava Tzia, Bava Basra, that a milva al peh, that a milva b'shtar, you can be goiva from lekuchas. You can go and take. If you have a star, you can, and the person doesn't have what to pay, you go and take from people who bought from him. Right? There's a shibud, and you can go be goiva from his lekuchas and people he sold to. But a milva al peh, if it was just sold with a star, I mean al peh with edim, you can't take from lekuchas or from yarshim for that matter. That's what we're talking about. But it's the whole Bava Basras, and it's on the last blot where it explains. You're going to see soon where it explains what the svar is. Elor of Nachman. So that he says that's the chiluk. That's the chiluk. Although by the Yisaimim, where the father said that I have a mana leplini amatnu loyamatnu ein daisnim. That's talking about where there's no star. And over here, it's talking about where there is a star. It's in fact the Gemara. So even if he said Tnu, how could you take from the Yarshim? It's a milva al peh. You shouldn't be able to take the Yarshim. Alam Rav Nachman, ID dinaket star. It has to be all these are a milva b'shtar, because otherwise there wouldn't be any discussion about taking from Yarshim. The question is whether you could take from. It's going to depend on whether he says Tnu or he doesn't say Tnu, because the Mishnah that says that you don't take from him is talking about was not Mekuyim. So if he says Tnu, that's the father was already a Moed B'Shtar Shekasvai, and you're not going to need to be Mekayim the Shtar. Although normally Moed B'Shtar Shekasvai there's a Machlek that Tzarech L'Kayim, over here he's a Shchemera, so that gives his Haidah more force, and that would be a Kiyam for the Shtar. Amatnu Kayim L'Shtar, Lo Amatnu Lo Kayim L'Shtar. And that's where they're going to have a chiluk. If he didn't say Tnu, then the shtar is not Mekuyim, and you can't be goiva even though there's a shtar. Amar Rabba, Shchemera she'amar manan el plini biyad. A Shchemera that said, I owe a mana to Reuven was the Shchemera. He says, I owe a mana to Shimon. But Amru Yisaimim, and the Yisaimim, then he dies. Reuven dies. But Amru Yisaimim paranu, and the Yisaimim say. Then Shimon comes to collect his $100. They say, no, we paid you back, Shimon. Nemanim. They are believed. Tnu mana leplenty. But if Reuven had said, rather than saying, I owe mana leplenty biyadi, he said, Tnu mana leplenty. He gave a more direct instruction. He said, give a mana to plenty, but Amru Yisayim Paranu. And the Yisayim said, we already gave it. Eineman. Is that really the correct direction to take this? It's the other way around. Mana, if the father said, give the money, even the paska avu and the milsa, it should be the other way around. If the father directed them to pay it, and now they're saying, oh, our father told us to pay, so we listened to him and we paid him, then you would believe them. Mana l'plaini biyadi, but if he just said, I have a mana, but he didn't say tnu, even the loy pasak avu and the milsa, since he didn't say it, so it should really be the other way around. So Dr. Gemara says, so you have to understand this is a different part altogether. And this is what was really said. Reuven said, I have a man of Shimon in my hand. And the Yisayimim say, our father, after he told us that he has a man of Shimon's in his hands, he told us afterwards, I made a mistake. I forgot that I already paid back Shimon. Everyone's very suspicious of the assignment. It's very convenient that the father said I was chayzer. Listen, but we're always sympathetic to Yisayimim. They can't argue for themselves so well. So So my timer, then they're neman. My time it kuri mitka, because the father said, he was mulling it over. He says, I owe Shimon $1,000, and then a minute later he says, oh, it's true, I did owe Shimon $1,000, but he also paid him back. It came to him. But if the father said a definitive statement, I gave the money leplani, and then afterwards the Yisayimim say that he told us when no one was around that he already paid it back, and then our father said he paid it, then they're not nemadim. He said the pare leva amar tnu. He wouldn't have used a definitive lashon of give if he was still fuzzy, if he was still thinking it over. Once he says tnu, the father, we don't believe the sons that he changed his mind. Boy Rabba, shchev mera shahoida, a shchev mera that is moida that he owes money. Now, Mao, he was moida on anything. He's moida that he stole. He's moida. So generally, the rule is that if someone makes a hoida, it has to be in front of Adam, and he has to give instructions to write it down. Otherwise, you don't believe him. You could say he was just joking. If he says, I one time hit someone with my car, he's stopped talking. I'm going to say meshatu. So Mao, what happens if a shchemira said it? Like we've said, a shchemira has extra nemanis. A shchemira, for example, normally with something that you have when he gives a gift, you have to give a gift, you have to write a star. But when a shchemira says it, it's as if it was already written down. So Mao. Does he have to instruct Adam that I want you to be my Adam on my Haidah, which is normally the case, or otherwise we say he's just joking or not? And also, does he have to instruct that they should make a star, or it's not relevant to make a star because he's a shchemira, and what he says is as if it was written? So the Gemara explains, what's the question? The reason why you always need Adam is because a person could be meshata. He could be just joking. But if he's a shchemira, it's not a joking time. So even if he didn't say the Adam should be Adam, in any case, it's not relevant because we don't believe he's joking. And the second question of whether we trust him whether he has to instruct to write it down, a shchemira never has to write things down. So therefore, the fact that he didn't say they should write it down is irrelevant. Certainly, a person does not joke at Misa during Misa, so he doesn't have to instruct the Adam to be Adam. Whenever a shchemira says anything, it's as if it's written down. So therefore, there's no problem with writing down what he said, his haidah, even though he didn't instruct to do it. Zok the Mishnah. This is, like I said, this is maybe the most quoted line throughout Nezikin. Hamavas chaver b'shtar, goyve menechasim meshubad. Someone who lends with a shtar, with a contract, and he writes it down. So the person who got the money, who got the shtar, can be goyve if it turns out that the borrower does not have any money. He can go and take from the chasim that the borrower had sold. He could go to the lekuchas and take from them. Al yedei Adam. But if he didn't lend with a shtar, he just had Adam observe the original loan, then he's limited. He can only take from the actual assets of the borrower, but he can't go after what he has sold. He can't take from the chasim meshubad. What happens if instead of having a shtar that was signed by Adam saying Reuven owes money to Shimon, Shimon has a shtar that was signed by Reuven, meaning it's not that it was written, the whole shtar was written in his handwriting, and it says I Reuven owe money to Shimon, and it's written in his hand. So you don't need Adam because you know that he wrote it. You know he was masking to because he wrote it. Then again, even though you could use that as a shtar to be goiva, but you can only be goiva from nasim b'chayrim, just like Adam. It's a raya, right? It's a good raya. If he wrote it and signed it, it's a raya that the loan was made. But it's the same thing as if you had Adam who saw it as opposed to Adam who wrote it.
Suppose like an I know without Adam.
Without Adam.
Napkin style.
All right, so it has the status of a milva al peh. You can only be goyba from bnei chayrin. As obviously we all remember. What's the reason? The reason is because something that's in a star with Adam has a coil, and the coil gives notice to people who might come to buy from this borrow. But if you write, like you say, on a napkin, or if you just do it in front of Adam, people are not going to have notice and know that they have to. They're not going to be aware that this guy's in debt, and they won't know not to buy his property. Orev hayotza, this is a different topic. Orev hayotza la'achal chisa stars. If someone wrote a star, and after the signature of the Adam, underneath was written, oh, and so Reuben owes Shimon money. Levi writes a note afterwards that I'm being an Orev on this loan. Goyva minachasa b'nei chayr. It can only be goyva from this Orev from his b'nei chayr. Maisu ba l'fnei Rabbi Shmuel. It came to Rabbi Shmuel. He said, Taka, like we just said, you can only be goyva from Nasa Bechayr. Banana said, no, you can't even take this whole arvus is not right. It's certainly not part of the star because it's after the Adam. So therefore, you can't be goyva from Nechasim. People are not going to have notice that this is part of the star, that it should be goyva from Nechasim b'shabadim of the Arev. Banana says, no, you can't be goyva at all from this Arev. This whole arvus is not an arvus. They asked him why. What happened if someone was literally strangling his friend Bishuk? What it means, a lender is sweating his borrower in the shuk, and he's saying, you owe me $1,000, pay up. And Levi comes by and he sees this situation. He makes himself an Arv. He says, leave him alone and I'll be Meshabeh myself to be an Arv. Potter. In that case, Levi is not going to really be an Arv. Because he did not do the original halva with this Arvus. And Bananas holds that an Arvus that comes into being after the original loan is not a valid Arvus. It has to be part of the original loan. They have to all be done together. Ella Ezahu Arev Shu Chayev. What is the Arev that's Chayev? Chayev. If he said lend to him if you lend to him, I'll be an Arev, then he's going to be Chayev. Shechein al Munasa Hilvei. So that's Banana's Shita, is that a Arvus cannot go into effect after the loan has already been in place. Because it's going to be a svar, like we said, it's an asmachta. He doesn't believe the loan was already made. So now he's just making everyone feel good. So I'm going to back it up. But he doesn't really mean to, the person lent it without needing this. Like the Rashbam says, Amalei Bananas in a goy with the whole Arab Shalachar Matan Mois Loy Havi Arab. Shaloi Alamunosai have the Chassid Shal Arab Zehelvei. He didn't lend based on this, so therefore there's no kinyan of the Arabs.
Why is he writing
it? I'm sorry?
I understand. You're trying to save someone's life. Obviously, you're doing it.
Yeah. No, it's not talking about literally.
I understand, but over here it's like the loan went through already. The Adam signed on it, done.
Right.
So why are you even adding those 3 lines afterwards? And I'm going to take responsibility.
He thought it would be meaningful, but Lamaisa, he's saying it's not kaina. There's no kinyan on this arvis if it takes place after the original halva.
I get that, but what was the whole purpose of writing it?
He was trying to be an arvis. He thought he was. Maybe in the case also.
Like in the case of the shuk, I understand.
It's not a question of what the motivation is really. Bananas was not talking about because over there. It's not because we're not talking about the motivation. Bananas holds that technically it's not a kinyan of arvus unless it takes place, unless the person is being meshabed himself on smach of the arvus.
So I guess that's what the question. The question is, it's interesting that we're saying the Mishnah is saying that the das of the malva and the leiva isn't important.
It is.
Of the borrower and the lender.
It's the lender.
But the Arev himself,
he's making himself meshubah to the lender.
But we're very worried about what the das of the Arev was.
It's not really the das. No, it's not the das of the Arev. We're not talking about the das of the Arev. We're saying that there's no kinyan unless it's part of the original shibud from the loiva to the malva. The malva made the loan without this opera. So now you want to add on something. There's no kinyan. You can't add on to a kinyan that already took place. That's this one. So Zok the Gemara. We're still in the Mishnah. This is a perfect timing. Whoever wants to become a chacham, yasik b'dinei mamres, should learn dinei mamres, should learn nezikin. She'en lecha mitzayah b'Torah yoysa mehen. There's no mitzayah in the Torah gadol mehen. There's nothing that's greater. It's as we know, it's a very complicated topic. Ben k'ma'ayin ha'neveya, it's like a spring that is always bubbling. B'roitza b'yasik b'dinei mamres yishamish as-shimon ben nanas. Ben nanas was a great chacham. You see from this psak that he was the best at analyzing mamres. If you want to become a chacham, you have to learn this thing. Amar Ula.
This is the last case. It sounds like a lesson from a couple, not an aura.
Yeah, I mean, but he said Helveyu. That Helveyu part is not, but it doesn't make a difference. He could be a Kabbalah and he could say, first of all, it's etin lach, ani noisen lach. It's both parts. It's the first part of it, whether he says Helveyu or Tenloi. The second part is he say ani noisen lach, ani Kabbalah, or if he says, or ani Pereya. But in any case, even if he said Kabbalah, even if he's a Kabbalah, it's not going to help because technically it's too late to be Makabal.
That would be a bigger kiddush, you would say.
Right, that would be a bigger chiddush. Right, if it's a Kabbalah, it would be a bigger chiddush, but I don't think bananas would be mechal. Amarula, dvar Torah, echad milva b'shtar ve'echad milva al per goyvim in a chasim shubad. Ula holds this whole din that there's a shibud that you could be goyva from the chasim. Is all it's a deraisa. My timer, shibud a deraisa. He holds this din that when someone borrows money, he becomes meshubah, that he has to pay back from his nechayrin, and that his lekuchas have to pay. That's midarais. If that's the case, if shibud is deraisa, why is it that a milva al peh? Why isn't there also a shibud? If the deraisa you meshubah, mishum say the lekuchas. The chamam u'mesakin, that we don't want lekuchas, people to be scared to buy things, because they're not going to know if someone did a loan balpeh. So the chamam u'mesakin that milva al peh is not going to be able to go build the cookies. So why don't we say the same thing by shtar? Also, we're not worried about the lekukas by shtar because they have notice. Milva b'shtar there's a coil, as the Gemara is going to say in a minute, and therefore they're going to be aware, and therefore the chacham we're not masak in that case. Rabba Amar, Rabba says the other way around. There's no shibud midaraisa. Midaraisa, all you have to pay, there's only the person who borrowed money certainly has to pay from his own assets, but to go from those who he sold to, midaraisa is no such thing. My time, a shibud alav deraisa. Midaraisa, there is no shibud. It's din of you can go after lekuchas is not a deraisa tikadin. So if that's the case, why can you go from nechasim mishubadim with a shtar? He says it's the other way around. We want to be able to encourage people to lend. So therefore, the chamum masakin a din of shibud that you can go after shtar. So awesome, less like color. There's by a milva shtar. There's no color. So it comes out the same thing, both according to Ula, who says it's that shibud is deraisa, and according to Rabba, who says it's the Rabbanan. In both cases, we're going to be mechalik being b'shtar or al peh. And the reason for the nafkamina is going to be because of a difference between whether there's a coil or not. But the question is, are you saying that it's be'etzem it's deraisa and the chamam u'mesakin in order to protect the lekuchas, that there's no shibud on a milva b'al peh, or is that midaraisa there's no shibud in the chamam u'mesakin because in order to encourage people to lend, that by a shtar there should be a shibud.
Does Ula hold of Rabba's svara of kol? Is that what he's saying?
They both hold of the svara of kol. The question is the kol a takana of the chachamim that there is shibud, or is by al peh it's takanas acham that there's no shibud to protect lekuchas.
When Rabba says, when Ula says, Hasam inu ninu
That's a svar of kol.
Is there
Right.
a svar of kol?
Because the lekuchas should have been aware.
So the Maisa not between Rabba and Ula. I understand.
Because of whether it's deraisa or derabanan.
It seems a pretty important.
We're gonna see this. I know. That's what I'm saying. This is a big thing.
Ian Gemara. So there is an aftermath between the two.
But we're gonna see.
Got it.
Omi Amar Rabba Hachi. Can we really say that Rabba holds shibud is lav deraisa? Amar Rabba gavu karka yeshlei gavu mois einlei. An afkamina will be if a son, a bechar, if the father of a bechar was owed money and he was goiva from the karka of if he was owed money, and then you take the karka, the person who owed the money had karka, then the son who's a bechar gets gavu mois ein. So Rabba seems to be saying that if there's a shibud, if he has a shibud on karka, the father has a shibud on karka, so that becomes the property, part of the estate, and it's considered to be already the father since there's a shibud, and therefore the son gets his pishnaim from it. But if shibud is only derabanan, what do we care that there's karka that he could be that's meshubed? Doesn't make a difference. It's only midirabanan. So it should still not be part of this.
You don't get pishnaim on the abundance, only the right.
It's something that's only the part that the father has a right to it, only midirabanan. It wouldn't become part of the din of bechar pishnaim is a deraisa din. So it wouldn't consider to be considered already to be in the rishus of the father.
Again,
let's see.
You don't get pishnaim on.
Let's see. Umi Amar Rabba shibud alav deraisa in the Rashbam varminim b'prakishnaim shochem itam bechar noito pishnaim b'milva, and something that was owed to the father. Amar Rabba Allah gavu karkois b'koivas avian, if they were goiva karka because of money that was owed to the father, yeshlei the command of mishabed b'chay avunda. Since it's midaraisa meshubed, it's as if it was already during the father's kol. Like we've said before, that something that's a chayiv is kagabi dami. So if it's midaraisa, there's a shibud, then it's already collected, and then it becomes part of the estate. Then it's considered to be what was already there at the time of the father's death. But if it's only derabbanan, then it's only a right that they could go get it. Midarabban, they were misakin, they could get it, but it's something that accrued to the estate after the death of the father, which is not included in the son's rights. The Rabba Ula. Maybe we'll switch the svaras. Maybe Rabba is the one who holds Shiba Derais and Ula is the one who holds not. Maybe we got it backwards. Ul de Ula del Rabba. Amar Ula, Dvar Torah Bal Choiv Dina Biziburis. We said that Midaraisa Bal Choiv's din is Biziburis, but the Chachamim Misakin that Bal Choiv should get Beininus. But how if we see that obviously Ula holds that Shiba is Deraisa, how could it be that the midaraisa his din is with ziburis or beininus? There's no din Torah that he's meshubed. Shibud is only midarabanan. And Lamai vice does that Ula holds shibud is deraisa, so you can't switch around and say he's the one who says derabanan. So tomorrow Rabba time of the name Rabba come of a leiloi spirale. Einachanami, that which Rabba said about the bechor, he wasn't saying his own shita, he was just saying over from others. But he himself doesn't agree to that. He taka holds that shibud is midrabban. Okay, then we'll finish off the rest of it, I guess, tomorrow. Tomorrow, please bring your Gemara Sanhedrin, because I think we'll hopefully finish before.